Today is November 30th, 2018. I'm sitting here with a group of shakers and movers from William Paterson University. My name is Dr. Librada Sanchez. I'm the director of the Women's Center here at William Paterson University. And here to my right is
Dr. Arlene Holpp Scala, and I chair the Women's and Gender Studies Department.
Professor Emerita Carole Sheffield from Political Science and Women's and Gender Studies.
And Dr. Jean Levitan, the Department of Public Health and affiliated faculty with Women and Gender Studies.
So we decided to get together here to have a conversation about the 25th anniversary of the creation of the Women's Center of William Paterson University. These women were the people behind the creation of the center. We're going to have a conversation with them so we can capture the history of the center. So, Dr. Sheffield.
Yes. Well, I know in the 80s there was generalized discussion of the need for a women's center. And when I was director of the Women's Studies program, I went to the president of the then college with a proposal. And the proposal was that we use a room on the 3rd floor of Robbinger that was not being occupied. It was not a classroom. It was allegedly a faculty lounge that no one used. So I said, if you will give us that room and a telephone, we will run a women's center on a strictly volunteer basis for 1 year and assess it. And if we find it worthy, then we will put in a formal proposal. And I thought this was an offer that couldn't be refused, but it was refused. And at the same time, I was working with the Center for the Study and Prevention of Campus Violence at Towson University. This was part of a committee assignment that I had here at William Paterson. And they had been advocating at every annual conference that colleges and universities do climate studies. And they were just not being done. So I came back from a conference, approached then Dean of Students, Dominic Bacola, and said, let's do this climate study. And he authorized it. I did the work, published the study. Well, it was being printed on campus, not to be published in an academic journal, but to be printed and given to the Faculty Senate, to the Student Government Association, various departments on campus, hoping to start a dialogue of what was happening.
What was the year, Dr. Sheffield?
That was 1992. It was actually the spring of 1992. I was on sabbatical. I got a call from the public relations director saying, please come to the college next week for a press conference. He didn't tell me what it was about. I came. And I learned afterwards that he was in the print shop when the campus violence study was being printed. And he asked the person in the print shop, what is this? And Jerry said, I don't know, I just print, So he took a copy and he spoke with the president of the college, and he said, even though it is not her intention to release this to the public, it will become public knowledge. And you have to get ahead of this. So at the press conference, the president announced that in response to the data from the campus violence study, that a women's center would be developed at William Paterson.
Great. So
Yes.
that's so actually it opened its door in 1992 as well?
In the fall of '92, because we had to have a search for a director.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay.
And just backtracking a little bit, I mean, I do recall going with you, Carole, I believe Jean, Donna Perry, maybe Alice Deakins, to President Spirit, before
Yes.
the study, and
Yes.
again, advocating for a women's
Yes.
center. And
Yes.
again, I think we were shocked as, certainly my very respected colleagues, long-term at William Paterson. I started as adjunct faculty and half-time, and then eventually full-time. But I was shocked that the president did not accept,
Right.
the offer for the Women's Center.
Right.
And also, if I recall, like back in the early 1980s, wasn't there something that was kind of called a women's center where gynecological exams were done.
Yes.
One on, I think, available, the doctor came in once a week.
It was in what is now back to being a dormitory. First it was a dormitory, then it was offices. And on the third floor, the Women's Studies program and the Feminist Collective worked together. It was a volunteer situation. On Fridays only, this space was open for sexual health care. And the sexual health care was separate from the health center. And so Planned Parenthood ran that center for a while. A different group came in. Planned Parenthood did it again. We were very innovative at William Paterson doing these kinds of things. And I think Ramapo College had a women's center.
I believe so, yes.
And that sort of hopefully made it a little easier as you brokered this with the administration. So.
And the Matelson Women's Center, as limited as it was, that was open for about 5 years.
Oh, no. I started adjuncting here in the 1970s.
Yeah.
And it was open then.
Yeah.
But it was still had limitations as to hours. And I think there was always a little back and forth. Should faculty direct? Should students direct?
Yes, that's correct.
And who's going to be most involved with that?
And how long did that last? Do you recall?
That particular space? No. I mean, I think when the Women's Studies program became a program, and you were here then,
yes,
that was the early 70s. Because when I was adjuncting in 76, there was a Women's Studies program with a coordinator.
Yeah, and I started adjuncting in Women's Studies in 1985, and I recall that Women's Center still existed for the health, addressing women's health issues.
And I think one thing about the climate on this campus is there have been a lot of really solid feminist faculty who were willing from different disciplines to come together. But there was also a culture of you're sort of on loan from your own department. So validating the need for a women's center, validating the need for women's studies, that was a struggle.
Yes.
It took a bit.
I never knew about the Matelson Center.
Yeah.
Never. That's good.
Yes.
And we have evolved gone a long way in terms of like the services for women through counseling, health, and wellness. Those are unlimited, right? In terms of time, they can go there at any time. It's not only one day.
I don't remember that one room in Raubinger.
Oh, yes.
And if that ever came to pass.
It never did. No, it was turned down flat.
Yeah.
But then the Women's Center was given a room on the second floor of the Student Center. And it had an open, large lounge, a secretary's office or an assistant's office, and the director's office. And that was the space.
Yes.
And that was the space that you came into.
And that's where I found it when I came to William Paterson in 2000.
Right.
Yes, exactly. Then we were moved. When this creation of the Women's Center happened, what did you envision for the Women's Center? You remember, what were the ideas around the structure and dynamics?
For me, both because of my scholarly work and my teaching, but also stemming directly from the campus violence study. It was around the issue of sexual violence. The campus violence study showed that for the year that the study was done, 1991, there were approximately 88 from the respondents, 88 sexual assaults. And that compared to campus police data where they had 1. That's perfectly in line with national data.
Yes, absolutely.
And I wanted to situate the Women's Center in this context of we were doing sexual health care, but we needed to do violence care and rape care. And this was very political when the Board of Trustees met to affirm the appointment of the first director of the Women's Center, who was not the unanimous choice of the committee. The unanimous choice of the search committee was Dr. Scala. And the administration chose a third-ranked candidate. It was controversial. And students were there to express their displeasure at the board not selecting Dr. Scala. The one board member stood up and yelled to the audience, rape has nothing to do with the Women's Center. And I knew then we were in big trouble, because my motivation was to have a place on campus where victims of sexual assault could be cared for, could feel safe, could get information, and also then the center could provide a learning experience for the whole campus.
If I can just dovetail on that, because it wasn't a difficult time. I was co-directing the Women's Studies program at that point, and the president said, please have Women's Studies work with the center to get activities started and going. And the director who was hired was a PhD psychologist, and so she had the skill set to both counsel students who came in and make referrals, and also, as anybody who's been the director, use their vision to kind of grow, which was an empty room at that point. On the drop-in side of things, and there were reactions to the violence study. There were people who said, I've never heard about this happening. There couldn't be 88 people. You know, the police don't have it, so it just couldn't possibly be that bad here if I don't hear about it. So there was that piece. But there was the director at that time eventually ran into problems with the administration, who felt if students need counseling, they go to the counseling center. They don't go to the Women's Center. We have to coordinate and centralize. And I think that spoke counter to what we had envisioned. But as it grew, a library grew. It became a safe space for not every student, but at least a number of students. And a lot of educational efforts started to campus-wide in collaboration with Women's Gender Studies, which at that time initially wasn't a department. But then when it became a department and Arlene became the chair, then everything was, I think, really growing in a nice way.
Yes. I think that's really important, though, to bring up that the Women's Center was also, besides envisioned as a place, you know, for addressing sexual violence, also in terms of programming. Okay, that was really, and as you reminded me too in your literature, that we had the first Tuesdays series in Women's Studies. Yes, and again, that really connected very well too, you know, with where we moved into with the Women's Center, this tradition of addressing, you know, feminist issues on campus, you know, with regularity.
And because, as Jean said earlier, we were a program, not an academic department. We didn't have a full-time faculty member. Arlene was half-time. We were all on loan from our departments, and we were doing major programming. The first Tuesday lecture series was the first Tuesday of every month we had, and we did this for years. So we were all, I think, hoping that the Women's Center was going to take a part of that, not ultimately over, but in cooperation with, but take a big part of it, because we were trying to develop the academic part of women's studies as well. So
I don't remember when Women's History Month started and when the Take Back the Night marches started.
Well, Take Back the Night has a long history of
that's what I'm saying.
Yes. But before the Women's Center.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, speaking of the model that we are applying right now to this state, you know, the counseling piece is always referred, you know, it's not in the Women's Center. Students who need counseling are referred to the counseling center.
But the current model has a sexual assault counselor.
But that came later, right? That came later. Actually, the idea for the director of the Women's Center is basically to be the leader in the way the center is going to grow and how the center is going to reach out to the community. So even though my degree is also in psychology, I don't do personal counseling. I don't have direct services myself. But I see the students, and I make sure to refer them what they need, you know, what they can be helped. So it's kind of like, you know, an initial interview and referrals. We do that at the Women's Center. Now, with the years and with the development of the OVW grant from the Department of Justice, that has been with us since 2010. We had the first one. Then we were able to develop direct services for victims of sexual violence. And to this day, you know, the university has assimilated the position, and right now, what was a grant position is now a full-time position at the Women's Center. So we now, at this time, we are fully providing direct services to basically victims of violence. Okay, and it's expected to grow as we got the third grant this year, actually, and we're going to be further cementing the structure of support for everything that has to do with gendered violence. But the model has persisted in the sense of sending the students to the centers that are best qualified and totally dedicated to specific services, like, for example, counseling.
Yes.
I think one of the things that I thought was very exciting was that the director of the Women's Center brought Eve Ensler here, who performed the vagina monologues before anybody knew about it, really. And so after that, it went on to be off-Broadway, but then we started through the Women's Center having our own Valentine's Day student and faculty participation.
To this day.
To this day.
It has been running for 17 years. As far as I'm concerned, with Dr. Stroppel, of course, who has been behind this. We do it every year as a part of Women History Month.
And every spring semester, I bring my capstone students, and we read an excerpt first from the vagina monologues, and I tell my students that we had Eve Ensler here in the 1990s. I believe it was just before her book was published.
Yes, it was.
I think it was before her book was published. So it was really so exciting having her here. And this is part of, you know, this wonderful, wonderful history here, the wonderful history here.
And we had Jean Kilbourne, who was the driving force behind the film, behind looking at violence and sexism and advertising. And I don't know, Killing Us Softly became a staple for the racism and sexism and English, many classes. And she was here. We looked at body image. We had panels around relationship choices. And,
remember we had was she a doctor, Dr. Nussbaum, who was a domestic violence victim? That was a very powerful presentation.
What's her first name?
I'm forgetting her first name. Her husband's first name was Joel
Steinberg.
Steinberg.
Do you remember? He was an attorney, and he beat her, Hedda.
Hedda, that's right.
Yes, I do remember.
And they brought, I forgot about that. That was very powerful.
Very powerful.
And so we have wonderful support for programming. I think having the university be near New York City makes some of it easier. But we had co-sponsorships.
We had Andrea Dworkin come. Very controversial, radical feminist, anti-pornography scholar and activist. And I remember that lecture because the ballroom was filled, 500-600 people in the ballroom. And Andrea spoke, you couldn't hear a pin drop. It was so quiet. And then the next year we brought John Stoltenberg here. We had Charlotte Bunch. We've had major speakers
We've had Gloria
here.
Steinem.
Gloria Steinem, yes.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yes.
Some of us, you know, I'm not, I had been going back, you know, looking through the, you know, the paperwork from prosthetic, and I have captured some of that information as well, but I was not familiar with this.
Yeah, Cheryl Clark. I mean, we could go on and on, you know, with, you know, all the speakers that we have brought over the years, and it's really a very exciting history in the Women's Center.
Absolutely.
I mean, just, you know,
that's some pedigree right there, right?
Right.
I think when the director of the Women's Center and the provost went head-to-head over something publicly, that she was let go. And then
that was the first director.
The first director. And then there was I can't remember if Molly O'Donnell was the interim before or after. So the search brought a new person in who had a totally different vision. And I think, I'll speak for myself, it caught me off guard because it wasn't my vision for what I wanted the center to be. The focus with administrative support was on leadership skills and empowering women. But then the center wasn't a drop-in place. No. And the furniture was changed, and the books were dispersed back to departments. And it was a different vision, a different person. And I think once you came, quite honestly, The center has, for me, gotten back in touch with working. I don't know, working with women gender studies, working with the students in a different way, and become a different kind of place. Physically, I find it's in a difficult place to locate, even though there's signage. And the politics around who gets what room on this campus.
We're very lucky to land in that side of the building that gave us actually 3 offices in a space where we could recreate the library and the friendly space for students to sit there and to have small meetings or just come to read books. But now that we're talking about that and changing times, right? What was the norm for women's centers in the past was this friendly space as the heart of the center. That was the norm. But that has changed. Students don't come around. They don't come around. The space is still there and it's a safe space. But students don't come around as much. Sometimes we do like open houses. We go and, buy food, put it out there. And some of them come. But it has become a different it's a different dynamics. As a matter of fact, right now, one of my goals for this coming year is totally developing the website for the Women's Center. So students can have continuous access to resources and information. Not even needing to come to see us. Okay, so be so absolutely comprehensive that they can get the information there and then come to the center if they feel that further help is needed, right? Because what is happening is that they are depending on electronic means and telephones and everything. And I believe that's what we need to start developing. We need to put the information where they can find it.
Yeah, I mean, first I also want to say that the Women's Center webpage is really nicely done. That's a very nice webpage.
And it's going to get better.
A very nice webpage. But also, for those of us who've been here a very long time, it's so hard to get used to the reliance on social media, and the lack of, I guess I'd have to say, interest, of going to spaces such as the Women's Center. And we find this with events. It's the reason why now we schedule events almost always during class time, so the professors can bring their classes.
Absolutely, you're so right.
And again, we're also competing with students' work schedules, but there's also more going on here, and in terms of students getting their information in different ways. We value the face-to-face, and we don't want to let that go. Okay, but also, how do we work with the generation now that is so reliant on social media?
And still keep being effective. It's a challenge. So not only the website has taken us like the entire summer to really make it good, and but also social media. Social media is it. There is nothing that happens on campus that unless you announce it in social media, they will not come to the events if they're not announced in social media. So I do spend a lot of time on flyers, and I put flyers everywhere, but we have, I don't know how many. We have social media for the Victim Services Coordinator's Office. We have social media for the LGBT section of the Women's Center, since we also do programs for LGBT. And we have one that is only for women's center, so we have all of them. I don't know how many we have.
Just for my own education, is that sending out emails, texts? I mean, how are you announcing
things? You can send from pictures to the pictures of the posters to comments to articles to anything really. So when there's a good article, something is happening, we share it on social media. We share the links, we share pictures of whoever, a woman who won a Nobel Prize or something. We keep highlighting the importance of women in our society, and we do it through social media every day more. The younger the people working with us, like Rebecca here, the graduate student, the better we're doing with social media, because of course they do have those skills. But going back to your what you say about programming, programming is now, I believe, the heart of the Women's Center. The Women's Center cannot survive without cooperation with specific departments, particularly the Women and Gender Studies department. And we do a lot of programming together. We contribute, collaborate, we use the faculty from the Women and Gender Studies, do a lot of presentations for Women's Center as well. We co-sponsor. The budget is now growing, so in order for us to bring these big names, we can't do it without the collaboration. And we had a perfect example, right? Last year, when we brought, brought the theater person, the presentation, right? That we have to like go to 10,000 departments, I don't know how many, to collect the money that we needed to bring this person on campus.
Yes, yes.
So, and this is what we are doing. We're doing this interdependence type of approach.
Yeah.
That particular play was also, it highlighted not only did you have to get the space almost 10 months ahead of time, but when Librada said to me, I have to raise the money, we had to get a commitment out of academic departments by September in order to be sure that they weren't going to spend what little money they had on something else.
Yes,
right.
Yes.
So it's the competing resources that gets very frustrating.
And as you mentioned, like getting speakers with a national reputation is more and more difficult.
Absolutely.
I mean, it always was difficult. I remember when students in the Feminist Collective wanted to bring Maya Angelou to campus, and at that time the fee was $35,000, I remember that, and it was totally out of the question.
Right.
And then students wanted to bring Angela Davis, and her fee was also maybe, I forget exactly, maybe $20,000 at least, and that was
Those
totally
are the fees.
out of the question.
Out of the question, right.
So,
out of the question. We had Janet Mock for the opening of Women History 1 year, and she at that time, trans activist, at that time she was affordable. We could do it. The 2 years down, she was 17,000.
Yeah,
we were like unable to bring her back.
Yeah, and then of course they have an agent. They go through an agency, you know. So again, that also.
Well, even Gloria Steinem was here for the Distinguished Lecturer Series. I don't know if she came earlier.
She was back before them. Yes, I remember that. It was in the lecture hall in the Science Building.
Yes, it was. Yes.
Really interesting. And you brought up LGBT. So let's talk a little bit about LGBT in the Women's Center. I mean, since we don't have an LGBT center or LGBT coordinator or director, I mean, Librada, you have filled that role so often. For a short time, we had Robbie here, who was also involved. His position was actually in residence life.
Residence life,
and he had I think 1/4 time position.
Yes, a few hours, really, 10 hours or something.
As LGBT, you know, whatever.
Right.
You know, for that little chunk of time, you know, but, you know, you have been an advocate for LGBT students.
Since day one.
I mean, now you have Matt working with you.
Yeah, I have my
as
student ambassador. Matthew,
yes, and I think, you know, that's been really so important that at least there's a place that LGBT students know, well, we can go to the Women's Center.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, it is a welcoming place, a place where, you know, we can talk.
Yeah,
so I think you've done a great job doing that. And again, that, you know, we should have an LGBT center with the LGBT
That's
director.
what I am pushing
but we don't.
For
but you know, you're doing that as well as director of the Women's Center.
Yeah, when I came in 2006, my direct supervisor was Francisco Diaz, and he put 2 items on the table for me, and he said directly, I need you to work on sexual assault and the LGBT sector of the population. That was like my guideline.
Yes.
And that's what I have been doing. That's what until now that I am now under the structure of the Dean of Students, and I report to Assistant Dean of Students, Dr. Lubeck, at this point. And in the Women's Center continues to develop services for LGBT as well. At this point, during the 3rd grant from OVW, we were able to include a position for an LGBT coordinator. So we're going to be having
that's wonderful.
Isn't that wonderful?
practitioner in place, not only to see the students individually, which I find they not necessarily come to us. We have to reach out to them, but to go out there in small groups and to also keep doing programming.
Absolutely.
Because that's the way to get to
programming. Key.
It's key. Absolutely. That's the heart of our operation.
Yes.
It may have been totally different before, but this is the way we're doing it now.
Yes.
Can I ask you, have you been able to cultivate new faculty contacts? Because
that's a great question. My God, that's a great question. Yes, Yeah, absolutely. There are sectors that are, of course, more closer to what the Women's Center does, and I can mention, for example, the psychology department. We do some programming with them, and also the public health department. Particularly, we did a program for Transgender Day of Remembrance with one of the faculty members from public health. So yes, not as much as I want to. I wish we could do more. But I guess as you do the job, you develop it. And now I have more expertise in how to approach them. They have what we need. They have the audience. They have the students in the classroom. And we want to come and do those programs, because what is happening is that we put together very expensive and difficult to put together programs, and then we don't get the audience. So that's why we work together with faculty, so we make sure that
and I think
that we're going to have the audience.
Challenge, like bringing the younger, new faculty to get more involved, for example, especially with the Women's Center now. And there's some wonderful feminists, in the English department, in so many other departments. I mean, history, your department, but wherever we look on campus, there are feminists, there are psychology, there are professors doing gender research, and I don't see them connecting with the Women's Center. And I know it's hard because, again, with the generation of new faculty, there's so much more pressure to have an ongoing, constant research agenda with constant production of published material.
Yes.
Everyone has had research agendas, but again, this publishing. So I think that's part of the reason why I think newer faculties are less involved, maybe in service and outside their departments, and specifically in connecting with the Women's Center. Because as you think toward the future of the Women's Center, it's going to be so important that that newer faculty also recognize the value of the Women's Center and work too, with the Women's Center on programming, and then with the LGBT coordinator.
Absolutely, that's a challenge that I need to embrace, because definitely that's the way to go. Definitely, that's the way to go. I believe now with our new president, the focus is going to be on collaboration, and we are a unit. We're not supposed to be in silos, everybody's doing their thing. We're supposed to be doing this collaboration among all of us, and that is exactly what a center like the Women's Center needs, is this collaboration. We have the resources here on campus. We have many resources that are very well advanced for us to be able to use them. But as you say, the emphasis has been on publishing, and I understand that because the tenure track has their demands. But perhaps we should put some value in community.
It's almost as though you have to intentionally reach out to people and get them to commit before they do their day-to-day syllabus, so they know you want to plan something for a particular date, as well as assessing how could we work together. We can target different people in different departments, what time programs are offered. Even the night, we used to have more things. We could do it in the evening, and the populations are changing.
Evening population has gone down so much.
Even weekends.
Preference for online courses, and rather than come in the evening. And same with Saturdays. I tried scheduling a class on Saturday, and we
used to have 5 in women gender studies.
Yes.
They ran.
So again, just
and then Sunday,
so many changes.
I remember that.
Going back to history, I love history. I mean, that is very inspiring. When I had been reading those clips, and I'm seeing things repeating again. What would when as the time passed, what is your vision for the Women's Center? Because you had been there when the center was created. Did you have any ambitions about the center? How did you envision the center to be?
Well, in my view, it's just not static, because as a political scientist, I know that cultures change. Of course, in 1992, I couldn't imagine, the reliance on social media and online courses. So I think in my heart, I didn't have a vision that would last for 30 years, but just knew the value of a women's center to a campus and wanted to make sure that the center was supported and funded so that it could, in fact, adapt to the changing culture and the changing student body.
Exactly.
Yes.
I find that the newest population of students, they don't know their history. They don't know the history of women's studies, the need for centers, things that you take for granted now are perhaps going to go away. My area has been reproductive rights, and the ability to access birth control and have it paid for was a progress, and then we stepped back. But I find that I think students need a place, places they can go.
Yes.
And not just, if you're troubled by an experience, if you feel the Women's Center is the right place to go, you go there. If a faculty member is going to be your contact person, you know, I've been in your classroom, I think I can talk to you. Can I come talk to you first? And yes, I understand we're not therapists, but listening is very important to then know where the resources are. And I think sometimes we're a little too fragmented.
Yes, yes. For me, resources, having readily available resources, was really key, because as I was teaching my courses and focusing on violence against women, I had so many students and staff come to me, and my first response to every one of them was, please know I'm not a therapist. You know, I'm an educator and a scholar, but I would always tell them, you're not alone, and you're not to blame. But here's where you can go. And when I first started talking with President Speart about the need for a women's center, it was really focused on having, you know, a centralized place for resources. And to me, that will never change. That's a constant. You have to adapt with social media and all of that. But having resources, because you know, everyone else, you don't realize you need them until there's a crisis, and then you need them immediately. Right. So
you may not even know where they are.
Yes. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That's so true, but it's the same. You know, what we're doing through social media and through the website is spreading out the resources that we have and that we can, you know, use with them.
Yes.
So resources is the key, absolutely.
Yes.
Even not only internally, but external resources that we can actually help them get.
Yeah.
I think on the good news is that there are so many more resources, you know, whether it's the lens of sexuality, whether it's support groups for battering. I mean, there could just be a number of links, and by county and by state. At the same time, there's this concern sometimes about our institutions going to be held liable for activities on their campus, and therefore training has gone on about what's your obligation to report something, and who do you have to talk to, and what has to be written down and what shouldn't be written down, and that gets kind of bogged down. And I don't think we're thinking that way. I wasn't thinking that way when the Women's Center got set up, that it would be the heart and the emotion and the caring piece, along with educating the campus, educating the students, helping people find their voice.
Right, which is doing, but since the times, you know, change, and now we have offices like the Office of Violence Against Women on the Department of Justice overseeing how the services are actually happening on campuses. And they have the regulations, and actually when you're underground like we are, you have to follow those directions, and you are so right in the sense that there are liabilities connected to coming across a report of sexual assault, and that's what we need to put training out there so people know what to do with it. Instead of saying, "Don't talk to me, I can't do it," training the person to say, "You know, this is all your responsibilities up from here to here. That's all." So people don't get scared about, you know, listening to a student who's going through a very difficult situation. Even if it's only sending the student to us, we will take care of that. We will sit with the students. We just need sometimes, and I know because you have brought students to our center to be assisted with situations like that. That is fantastic. I mean, you don't have to do it yourself. You can tell them, I don't know how to do this, but I know where you need to go. So that's good enough because we do have the services right there and we know how to handle those cases. We have been trained for that. It's a long training we had in all these years. And we are spreading that training as well because, I mean, cases happen everywhere, right? They can happen in the middle of the night.
Right.
In residence life. So residence life have to be trained to be able to face. But all that is coming through the grant.
And are all the pieces working now? I mean, in terms of like the residence life piece, in terms of students, you know, an event happens at night in the dorms, residence life is contacted, and then I assume would recommend that the victim, whether it's going to the police, seeing Teresa, you know, are the pieces working?
Oh yes, yeah, they are. It takes time to make these things work as we want them to work. But by following the formula from the Office of Violence Against Women through this grant, we have put in place all the pieces that need to be there working together. So the training is annual. We train every new set of student workers every August. They are completely trained. The residence hall directors and assistant directors, they are trained. So we don't wait for them to do as they think is good to do. They are trained to do this. To those trainings, we bring the Title IX coordinator. We bring the director of counseling, health, and wellness, the outreach coordinator. We have peer health educators who are spreading the message. So the system is working together. And as we run through these next 3 years, this is going to be even better. We're going to consolidate the way we are working. From things like, for example, an alert system with the police department that is going to be faster to report something that is being supported by this grant, this new grant, for example, to having a coordinator for LGBT at the Women's Center. Those are pieces that are being put in place because violence, you know, gender violence is very high among the LGBT sector as well. So we need services for them as well. But we are doing that. And it's not that we initiated that. That's part of the grant. Okay, we are just taking advantage of those.
The thing that worries me sometimes is that grants have like a certain number of years, and then there's an assumption that the institution will then take over and fund a position that's needed. You know, and not wanting to see, you know, that time's up and all of a sudden you can't continue your important programming.
But now that you mentioned that, William Paterson has been good about that. The sense that one of the positions that we created that is now a full-time position within the Women's Center is the Victim Services Coordinator. That came through us through the grant and was paid by the grant for 3 years. And then at the end, the commitment of the university was to institutionalize those services, and they did. So our coordinator has been hired as a full-time person, as a full-time member of the Women's Center. So we had been really lucky in the way we had been working with this grant and the support of the institution as well too. Now, are we going to institutionalize the coordinator? Let's see how is that going to work, right?
With the LGBT.
The LGBT coordinator. Hopefully, yes. Hopefully, yes. Let's see. I know the Vice President of Student Development is working in that direction. The voices of LGBT students are out there. They are speaking to her directly. Now that I have Matthew as the student ambassador, he has been very vocal. He has been very behind all these issues so we can be heard.
Is he mentoring his successor? Because he graduates.
He's graduating. He's graduating. Hopefully by the time Matthew graduates, I will have hired the coordinator. So it will be the coordinator who will train a student towards that.
Right.
Yeah, it is always a challenge. You know, you have
Yes.
good student leaders, the student graduates,
Yes.
and then oftentimes there's no
It's
one.
a vacuum,
Yeah,
right?
so
yeah.
again, you know, like in advisory position, I always also remind student leaders that I have contact with, you know, to think about who is the person, you know, who will do what you're doing, and you know, are you in a position where you can help to train
That's
that
a good
person,
idea.
you
That's
know?
a great idea.
Because again, they have to constantly pass the torch, and
Yes.
that's a challenge, you know, challenge for them. And
Yes.
you know, I think of the feminist collective. I mean, there are times when the collective has been very strong. You
Yes.
know, now it's
Mm-hmm.
you know it's still existing, but not powerful
Absolutely.
right now the way it had been a couple of years ago.
It goes in
You
waves.
know, so yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But we do have, you know, many success stories of students who came through your program and now graduated. Now they are like Samasa, for example,
Yeah.
directed the same ground we had here at Passaic County Community College, and
Yes,
now
yes.
she just landed the coordinator of the Women's Center for Ramapo College. So
Isn't that
the
amazing?
people are going
Yes.
there.
Yes.
So Samaza Ishak, one of our Women's and Gender
Oh,
Studies
that's
graduates.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so she's, and I have a lot of, you know, hope that Ramapo, the position is going to come back, because we did a lot of work between institutions with Montclair as well as Ramapo and Jersey City University, particularly for the LGBT conference. We have been working.
She's also completing her master's at Rutgers, so she really has been on
She's
a
almost
great
done.
track. She's very a strong feminist,
Yes,
you know,
yes.
and
So we
committed,
are-
energetic, you know.
We identify those resources, we see them, and we keep pushing them
Yeah.
beyond
Yes.
the boundaries of the
Yeah.
institution, because that's exactly what happened
Right.
with somebody like
I think nurturing leadership skills is something
Definitely.
that I think is so important.
It is
for a
important.
women's center.
That's a good
because
point. Yeah.
what is the better place to practice leadership
Yes.
than on a college
Yeah.
campus?
Right.
It is an important piece.
Right.
It is, and we have, at least under my, you know, being the director, I haven't had the opportunity to formally develop.
Right.
But it's one of the things that I want to
Yes.
tackle. This is one of those jobs that you really have to be on top of it. But that's what makes it exciting, and that's what makes it, you know, like you are all the time in action, right?
Yes.
But if you look back, you're gonna see the action happening there before you.
Yeah.
You know, so the action was put in there. Otherwise, the center wouldn't be here.
Yes.
So
yes. But you wear so many hats, you know.
Yeah.
many
Yeah.
hats.
Yeah.
You have to, but that's what makes it exciting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yes.
And the one thing we didn't touch on, again relating to LGBT, the safe space trainings.
Okay.
Which have come out of
yes,
the Women's Center
absolutely.
also.
Safe space training has been my way to reach out to, basically, not necessarily to students here, because safe space training is for allies. It's
Yes.
for people who want to support the LGBT community. That's what it was designed for. What I am doing is I have identified a great consultant, a couple of great consultants that I hire to impact specific structures. Like, for example, in the spring, actually this semester, we train the entire police department safe space training. Absolutely. Has been after that for years now, and it was possible this year with the help of Lynette Butler, who was the one who coordinated with me, and we trained the entire police department safe space training. But we have provided training for the police department through the grant for violence prevention as well. So we impact those structures to training. So training is part of what we do as this women's center, the actual women's center. And not only the police department. So we have trained safe space training provided to the police patrol, who's students,
Student
right?
patrol.
Yes.
Student patrol. So the students are high contact, right, with students. They are just workers, you know, like any other student working on campus, but they have high contact with students. They need to be trained. They need to be trained for safe space. They need to be trained for violence. Again, you know, for violence in general, gender violence. So that training is crucial. If we cannot do that, there's no way to spread the action. Through the university, which is absolutely essential.
Yeah.
But all that is happening slowly.
Yes.
It is happening. So
the Women's Center has to be this living, breathing thing. It's never, you don't graduate from it. You never say that task is completed. The tasks just get reinvented.
yes, yes,
You know. with the culture.
Absolutely.
And that's why it's so challenging for you as director, because you have to be constantly reinventing yourself.
Oh, yes, absolutely. But if you like that, you're fine.
Yes, if you like it.
Actually, but it's a lot of inspiration around, and it's a lot of support as well. My direct supervisor is extremely supportive of what we do through the Women's Center. So I cannot say that I'm doing this alone. This is something that is the institution is behind. Sometimes the trick is to make sure you get the institution behind you.
Yes, yes.
The trick sometimes.
And the pieces change there too. So.
Yes, yes.
And also not only to rely on the institution as the sole provider, like going after a grant is a way to bring support to the institution in terms of finances and knowledge, so we can actually do the job.
Yes.
And I know running a grant is not easy. It's like doing two jobs in one. But sometimes that's the way to get to where you want to be.
I've been told that once you get your first grant, it's easier to get your next grant.
Oh, yes, absolutely. We're an example of that. This is our third grant from OVW. Yes. And of course, you know, the first and second grant, we are very grateful to Dr. Sheetal Ranjan, who was the one who wrote that grant, put it together. And she was an excellent role model in terms of how to do these grants and how to run them. This third time, we didn't need Dr. Ranjan as much. She kept going with her projects. But by now, I am the director of the grant, but by now I'm graduated. So they do change, though. They do change. This grant is totally different, but that's life. So I'm very grateful to you all.
Thank you.
I mean, the more I read about it, the more I say, okay, it needs some type of women to do this job, okay? Because I don't know, these centers are not just generated just like that. Somebody has to put some strength behind.
Yes.
To be able to make it happen.
I think also important in your office is having a good administrative assistant like Helena.
Oh, absolutely,
you know?
absolutely.
I mean, absolutely, yeah. Because again, you know, if I call the Women's Center, if you're not there, you're doing something else, Helena's there. So it's
Helena is there. Helena will handle any type of.
Yes. And what she doesn't know, she'll say, "I'll get back to you," and she does.
And she does that.
She always does.
Yes, the staff of the Women's Center is amazing. Even the graduate students.
Yes.
The grad students are fantastic.
Yes,
we had the last three we had. What an amazing system to have grad students. And
what do you feel you need in the Women's Center? I mean, to make the Women's Center what you would like it to be, what do you need?
I need more space. I need a full office. Because now that we have the grant and we're getting 2 more employees for the center, we're getting an administrative assistant.
Where are they going?
Yes, that's a challenge. And I want this LGBT coordinator to be able to have a private office where he can or she can work. So spaces, but since these people are going to be hired part-time, then we're going to be playing with the space around. And we are going to implement it just that way. We'll see what we need to do.
Is there a way to pop out one wall and take over something?
They already gave me several walls. So, as a matter of fact, now that you mention walls, we just opened 3 lactation units.
I've heard that,
3 lactation rooms. And so the institution has been generous in the sense that if you compel them, this is what is needed. They will find a way.
And are they getting used?
Not yet, because we just opened them. But we're expecting that for the spring we're going to have full use.
Tell my daughter Leah to come by and breastfeed the baby here.
And they're fully equipped, okay? And also the gender-neutral bathroom, right? The old gender bathroom that we had been
How many do we have now?
Oh,
About
I
9?
lost track, but more than that probably. We have them all over. And the list of bathrooms is in the website, in our Women's Center website. So slowly the institute has been totally supporting the transformation of the campus to the 21st century, right?
And the Women's Center has also been key in pushing for the gender-neutral bathrooms.
Absolutely.
That's another, achievement, which was really just very, very important.
Absolutely. Dr. Camarata has been behind that,
Yeah,
definitely
yeah,
behind
yeah,
that, and
yeah.
helping with get that. And we can't complain about the way the institution has slowly put the resources there as we find them.
Right. But the push has to come
the
from
push has to be
someplace.
there.
And the Women's Center has
That's
been
what women
key
can do,
in
right?
pushing
Yes.
this.
Push for
Yes,
it.
yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
But it's good to see that if you put the intention and the motivation, and the response is there, right? The institution is responding to it. I'm very excited about the creation of this multicultural center now. And again, we have to be behind and we have to push for it, but this is going to be really important, something that students are asking for. So we're part of it. Dr. Scala and I are, part of the steering committee. And I'm very excited about that because I believe it's going to bring even more resources and places for the students to go.
And the challenge right now is money.
Yeah, of course. It's always money.
Money and space.
Yeah,
Yes,
money and space. Money and
yes.
space, yes.
Which is related, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's related because,
Yes.
if we had the money, we could either build or modify.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So right now, I know we're thinking about a center. We don't know where that center is going to be because, we're at the university.
What is the center of our university?
Right.
Yeah, and also extending services to the other, let's call them campuses, right? Like Valley Road, we put a lactation station right there just to start
Well, that's great. It's important to have one there because,
Yes.
again, you have education students, I think, in particular. I'm probably stereotyping in terms of who is maybe likely,
trying to make it in the business
be,
world as a
right, to be
lactating
mothers.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
So I believe you that were behind, the creation of the center, you can be proud.
Oh, yes.
You can be very proud that
Very proud.
that initiated, a whole movement that is
Yes.
still going and
Yes.
will continue to go.
Yes.
And I think your leadership has been marvelous.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely, Librada. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank
Yes.
you so much.
Yeah.
Yes. So, good conversation.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for this
so much.
opportunity. It was
Yes.
nice having
Thank you for bringing
together for this
the history of the
conversation.
center back to us now
Yeah.
that we are 25 years. Have been in existence.
Yeah.
Well, I was thrilled when you thought of this idea because I think 25 years out, at least my students just took the Women's Center, its existence for granted. And when I would share with them how much work I had to do, to get this institution to move, they just thought you just always had this. So for them to understand not only the political struggle from the beginning, but that it's a political struggle to keep it going.
Absolutely.
They need to value that. Students need to understand it, and then and they can't value it unless they know it, and then they can come to understand it.
Yeah.
So I thought it was just a great idea on your part to have this conversation.
I want to have this video as a fixture in the website of the Women's Center.
Oh, okay.
So people can know the history of the center.
Yes, yes,
And the efforts that need to go
yes.
behind
Yes.
it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.